I don't think I'll ever forget the moment we first saw them. Not because it was a miracle, though it certainly felt like one at first, but because it was the beginning of the darkest chapter in human history. My name is Commander Sarah Vega, and I was aboard the Nexus Explorer, a deep space research vessel assigned to chart the far reaches of uncharted star systems. It was supposed to be a routine mission, or as routine as interstellar exploration can get. No one had prepared us for what we'd encounter out there, other humans. Or so we thought. It all began on the 547th day of our journey. We'd pushed far beyond the known territories, beyond the reaches of Earth's communication buoys, into the cold, infinite darkness of space. This was supposed to be the cutting edge of humanity's exploratory efforts, and we took pride in it. We believed we were alone out here, pioneers venturing where no human had ever gone before. But that belief shattered the moment we picked up the distress signal. It came from a planet orbiting a dying red star, a place our charts hadn't even identified as a viable candidate for life. The message was fragmented, static-filled, and haunting. It wasn't an automated beacon or some ancient alien technology like we'd hoped to discover. No, it was a voice, clear, desperate, and unmistakably human. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Odyssey. We're stranded. Anyone receiving this, please respond." The Odyssey. It was impossible. That name belonged to a colony ship that had vanished nearly a century ago, one of Earth's first attempts to send people beyond the solar system. It was presumed lost, an unfortunate casualty of humanity's growing ambition. But now, here we were, picking up a live signal from its captain. The crew buzzed with excitement and unease. Dr. Tessa Monroe, our lead xenobiologist, voiced what many of us were thinking. It's been nearly 100 years. How could anyone have survived out here? "They could have found something," murmured Lieutenant Markson, our navigator. "Technology, a planet capable of sustaining life. Or something found them," added Chief Engineer Patel darkly. Still, protocol dictated we investigate. As we approached the planet, our instruments struggled to gather data. The atmosphere was dense with strange electromagnetic interference, making scans unreliable. But from what little we could discern, the surface was eerily Earth-like. Oceans, continents, even a breathable atmosphere. It was a miracle. But miracles, I've learned, often come with a price. We landed near the coordinates of the signal in a landscape that could have been plucked straight from Earth. Rolling green fields stretched to the horizon, broken only by clusters of towering, dark trees. The air was crisp, and the sky held a familiar blue tint, though the dim red sun cast everything in an unsettling twilight. And then we saw them. A group of people emerged from the treeline, waving their arms. They looked human, too human. Their clothes were weathered, patched together from what must have been remnants of the Odyssey. Their faces were gaunt, but filled with a desperate hope as they approached. At the forefront was a tall man with a graying beard, his eyes sharp and calculating despite the weariness etched into his features. "Thank God," he said, his voice cracking. "We thought we'd never see another soul again." He introduced himself as Captain Elias Ward, just as the signal had claimed. His story was astonishing. The Odyssey had crash-landed here after a malfunction in their propulsion system. Stranded, they'd managed to survive on this Earth-like world for generations. He spoke of hardship, resilience, and the joy of seeing their children grow up under a foreign sun. But as he spoke, something about him set my nerves on edge. His smile was just a little too perfect, his words too rehearsed. And the others, there was a uniformity to their movements, an eerie synchronization as they stood behind him, silent and watchful. We spent days with them, exchanging stories and information. They were eager, almost too eager, to learn about us. They asked about Earth, our technology, our population. At first, it seemed innocent enough. After all, they'd been cut off from humanity for nearly a century. Who wouldn't want to know how far we'd come? But it wasn't just curiosity. It was probing. Their questions were sharp, targeted, like they were dissecting us with every word. Dr. Monroe noticed it first. She approached me late one night, her face pale in the dim glow of the ship's lights. "Commander, something's wrong with them." "What do you mean?" I asked, though I'd felt it too. "They're too perfect," she said, her voice trembling. Their DNA, their physiology, everything matches baseline human norms exactly. But it's too exact. There's no genetic drift, no signs of adaptation to this environment. It's like they haven't changed at all since the day the Odyssey disappeared. Her words chilled me. If they weren't adapting, then what were they? The seventh night was quiet aboard the Nexus Explorer. Too quiet. After days of cautiously exchanging words with the survivors, my crew and I were restless. Patel, our chief engineer, had spent countless hours hunched over the salvaged data core from the Odyssey, its metal casing scarred with age and alien corrosion. It was an old piece of tech, but Patel was relentless, muttering about power relays and quantum connectors as if coaxing the machine to give up its secrets through sheer will. By midnight, his persistence paid off. "Commander," his voice crackled over my comm. "You need to see this." When I entered the lab, the air was heavy with unease. Patel looked up, his face pale under the harsh fluorescent lights. Without a word, he gestured to the monitor. I leaned closer, the screen flickering as it displayed grainy, distorted footage from the Odyssey's final moments. The camera, mounted in the ship's bridge, captured chaos. Alarms blaring, sparks raining from overloaded consoles, crew members shouting orders. The Odyssey was spiraling, flames licking at the edges of the screen. It was a scene of desperation, of human error and inevitability. Then, it happened. Out of nowhere, a light engulfed the ship. Not the blinding, searing light of an explosion, but something else, soft, pulsating, and unervingly alive. It was as if the light had consciousness, flowing through the ship's structure, reaching into every corner. The crew froze mid-action, their movements halting like marionettes whose strings had been severed. Then the footage cut to black. Patel clicked to the next file. The screen blinked back to life, showing the Odyssey resting on the surface of an alien world, pristine and undamaged. But there were no people. The bridge, the corridors, every part of the ship was devoid of life, as if the crew had simply vanished. The final file was the most chilling. The camera focused on Captain Ward, seated in the captain's chair. But something was wrong. His face was slack, his eyes glassy, his movements mechanical as he leaned toward the camera. "They are not us," he said, his voice hollow and devoid of the warmth we'd come to associate with him. "If you find this, run." Patel stopped the playback, his hands trembling. "Commander, the timestamps. This footage was taken before the distress signal was sent." I stared at him, my mind racing. "But how?" "Captain Ward. He's here. We've been talking to him for days." Patel's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's not him, Commander. Whatever's down there, it's wearing his face." Armed with this knowledge, we couldn't ignore the gnawing truth any longer. The survivors weren't survivors at all. But the question remained, what were they? And more importantly, what did they want? We decided to confront Captain Ward, or the thing that looked like him, under the guise of sharing new information. He greeted us in the central hall of their makeshift colony, a smile stretched across his face. But now, knowing what we did, that smile looked more like a mask, a hollow attempt at mimicking human emotion. "We've uncovered some fascinating details about your crash," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Would you care to explain this?" I handed him a tablet displaying the footage from the data core. For a moment, he didn't react. Then his expression shifted, the warmth draining from his features, like water seeping from a cracked vase. His head tilted unnaturally, his gaze locking onto mine. "You weren't supposed to find that," he said, his voice no longer the familiar baritone we'd heard before. It was layered now, as if several voices spoke in unison, deep, resonant, and alien. The others in the colony, those who had stood silent and watchful behind him, began to move. Their heads turned in perfect unison, their bodies stiff as they surrounded us. Gone were the kind, weary survivors we'd met. In their place were something else entirely, imitations too perfect in their mimicry, too cold in their presence. "We've learned enough," one of them said, its voice rippling with the same layered distortion. "Earth will make a suitable acquisition." My crew and I backed away, hands hovering over our weapons. "Acquisition?" I said, my voice tight. What are you talking about? Ward, or whatever he was now, stepped forward. This planet was our testing ground. We observed. We adapted. And now, thanks to you, we understand your kind. Your Earth will serve us well. Their forms began to shift then, their flesh rippling like liquid. What had once been human faces twisted and warped, their features melting away to reveal something far more alien. Their skin darkened to an obsidian sheen, their limbs elongating unnaturally. Their eyes, once human, were now black voids that seemed to swallow the light around them. We opened fire, but it was like shooting at shadows. They moved faster than we could track, their bodies dissolving and reforming with every shot. Markson was the first to fall, a tendril-like appendage lashing out and piercing his chest. He didn't even have time to scream. We ran. I don't remember how we made it back to the Nexus Explorer, only that every step felt like a lifetime. Behind us, the creatures didn't chase us so much as they appeared, their forms flickering in and out of existence, always just on the edge of our vision. By the time we sealed the airlock, we were down to half our crew. Dr. Monroe was sobbing, Patel was muttering prayers under his breath, and I was numb. The planet below shimmered ominously on our view screen, the red sun casting an eerie glow over its surface. "They'll come for us," Monroe whispered. "They'll come for Earth." I set a course back to Earth, praying that we could get there before it was too late. As we entered hyperspace, the last thing I saw was the planet's surface, rippling like water, the alien forms below staring up at us with unblinking eyes. Now, as I sit here recording this message, I can't shake the feeling that it's already too late. They know us. They've studied us. And we've given them the keys to our home. Earth isn't ready. We weren't ready. Out there in the vast, uncharted darkness, we believed we were explorers, the masters of our destiny. But the truth is far more terrifying. We are not alone. And the things in the dark void of space are not our friends. This is Commander Sarah Vega, signing off. If you hear this message, prepare for war.